Oh, thank you all for coming today. Today we are looking at chapter 11 of Daehaeng translation of the Diamond Sutra. It's called the Diamond Sutra, the Great Unfolding. And pretty close to what I said last week, the chapter titles of this are fascinating. Today the chapter title of chapter 11 is The Virtue and Merit That Arises Through the Intangible, Boundless Functioning of One Mind is Unsurpassed. You could also say, this virtue and merit that arises through this functioning of one mind is the ultimate form of virtue and merit, or is the ultimate virtue and merit. And one of the things about this is that it's happening automatically, right? It's not something intentional. It's not something I'm trying to do. Just one mind functioning as it is generates this virtue and merit. And as we'll see throughout the Daehaeng Sutra, one of the points it makes is all we have to do is move in tune with this. And that we also participate in that virtue and merit. We also benefit from that. And we generate it or make it available for other people as well. One of the things that's always interesting about texts like this is you have to remember that this is a very old text. Some of the earliest written forms are at least 1,600 years old. And so trying to convey big numbers to people at the time was a little bit tricky. If you asked a lot of people, they can count to 20, right? Oh, maybe 40. Okay, there's 10 here and 10 there, and you have 10 and there's 10 on your feet, right? And so, what's infinity? What's a million? It's like, oh, there's a million different ways. Oh, Buddha, is a million a big number? What's a million? And it's like, okay, now imagine if the Ganges River, every grain of sand in the Ganges River was another grain of sand. How much sand would there be? Or would that be, you think that'd be a lot of sand? It's like, okay, each grain of sand is another Ganges and all. Oh yeah, there's a lot of sand there, right? So they're not trying to get too specific. They're just trying to convey a sense of the numbers, the size of the numbers. And so the Buddha asked, is there a lot of would there be a lot of sand? Would that be a big number? And Subhuti picks up on where he's coming from and where he's been coming from in the previous chapters. And he says, yeah, that's a big number, and I'll go ahead and read this, but even those huge numbers are nothing. So I'm on page 113. But even those huge numbers are nothing in the face of this indivisible functioning of one mind, this unimaginable infinite functioning of all energies, connecting and working together as one, such that they cannot be said to exist or not exist. And if you look at the Korean is 3 lines, and the English is 7 lines. This is pretty typical sometimes for trying to translate these texts, is trying to convey all of the ideas that are going on, because the Korean is fairly dense. But the main idea, there's 2 main ideas. The functioning of one mind, the connecting, flowing energy, each point of connection, each point of manifestation is beyond counting. There's so many happening that that you can't count this, right? And it goes back a little bit to what we talked about last week, about our functioning tends to be, to use the English word, bounded by our senses, our perceptions in daily life. You know, how many things can you keep track of at one time, right? Honestly, most people are lucky to be able to keep track of 3 different things at the same time, right? If you need, you know, if you go to 5 or 6, something's going to get forgotten about. If you have 1 or 2, most people will keep track of those. But you start getting more than that and it just gets dropped. There's too much information. It's kind of the same thing with if you try to imagine the functioning of one mind. Okay, well, there's this, and there's maybe that, and there's maybe that, and you know, okay, I've come up with 3, 4, 5. But you know, here it's like, you know, count the stars in the sky, right? Count the sands of the Ganges River. And if you think about some of the pictures that people not taken, but some of the computer-assisted pictures that people have created of the inside of a cell, just, you know, 1 or 2 cells, and then all the parts inside the cell and all the little components of those. It's like this vast collection or factory inside of another factory, inside of another thing, inside of another thing. And it's just mind-boggling. And it's, you know, it's the tiniest part of our body. You can't even see it with our eye. It's so tiny. And yet it's got so much stuff happening. And all that's happening at the same time. And so that's, you know, again, one of the points here is taking us beyond our normal perceptions. If I tell you, tonight before you go to bed, raise the thought that you want to dream of something pleasant, right? Raise the thought that you want to dream of something nice. What your idea of nice is going to be pretty much 100% of your past experiences, right? What's the nicest experience in my life? Or what was a really nice day? Okay, I'll dream of that. We don't see what we haven't perceived. If I tell somebody 150 years ago, dream of planes, right? Dream of rockets. But they're like, well, what's this thing? I've never heard of it. You know, they can't imagine it, so they can't conceive of it. They can't dream of it. They can't visualize that, or they can't imagine that as a goal going forward, right? It's the same thing with this. Our conception of how we live tends to be bounded by our senses. It tends to be bounded by what I've experienced so far. And it's really difficult to step outside of that. And this goes back to another aspect of Daehaeng Kunsinim's teachings about spiritual practice. To step outside of that, we have to let go of who I think I am. We have to let go of what I think I know. Then we can pick up on what's really going on. But as long as we think, this is it, this is what I know, this is the world, this is the way it works, this person is like that, that person is like this, I can't go beyond that. I can't, you know, even what I think of may be true at a certain level. At a higher level, or, you know, even a different dimension, that's not the way it completely is, right? So to get beyond that, to experience anything beyond where I am now, I have to let go of what I have, where I'm at. So even everybody who's practiced any kind of deep spiritual practice has picked up on this. I think it's a verse in the Bible that says you have to lose everything, then you gain everything. It's that same idea. We have to let go of what we think we know. And that's also where the Subhuti is pointing us towards here. You know, however big a number you think of, however vast the functioning of one mind or of this universe is, it's more than that. So don't get too caught up in what how you think things are going. On page 115, there's a really interesting twist that Daehaeng Sunim gives over the traditional translations of the Diamond Sutra. Here she says, the Buddha says, if people use the treasures of one mind and use that to help other people, do you think there'd be a lot of virtue and merit from that? Right? So working through mind, in Korean we'd say working through mind, right? Entrusting hope or intention for somebody's well-being or for the harmony of the situation to my foundation, and let it make contact with the whole and function from there and manifest from there. And I mean, this is the way to truly help people, right? I can, if I see you and I realize that you need help, then that's the starting point. I can maybe go help you, right? But is that the help you needed, you truly needed? You know, yes, I was thirsty, but that wasn't my real problem, kind of a situation. And I have to pick up on that there's something going on. But if I entrust the intention, I hope he lives well. I hope he has enough sufficiency to get by on. May he be healthy and harmonious and happy. If I entrust this, then that whole thing begins to function at this unseen level. And it's like, it's like holes in the floor. You spread the varnish over the floor, you spread the polish over the floor, and it fills the holes automatically, and it flows off the high points automatically. It just happens according to where the need is. Right, so in this verse on page 115, Daehaeng Sunim is saying, if we use these treasures of mind to help other people, wouldn't there be a lot of benefit for that? Well, in the traditional verse, in the traditional version, this is always interpreted as treasures, period, like gold and silver and jewels. If I gave a lot of jewels to help somebody, wouldn't there be a lot of benefit from that? But Daehaeng Sunim read that and said, no, they're not talking about jewels, right? They're not talking about minerals. They're talking about actual help, fundamental help. May even people behaving very badly are usually behaving badly out of ignorance and pain, right? Even somebody who enjoys behaving badly is behaving badly out of ignorance, because everything they're doing is going to be coming back to them. If they really realize, if they truly understood that they're going to get everything they've given plus interest, they'd be like, whoa, no way, that's going to sting. So it really is ignorance in one form or another. But if we raise the thought, may they live wisely, may they live harmoniously, may whatever pain is driving them, may they find a way through that to something better, and we entrust that, then that really does make a connection with them. It really does help them. If somebody's behaving badly towards me, and I make an effort to entrust that and say, okay, true self, okay, Buddha nature. Here in Korea, we use the word Juingong sometimes. Okay, Juingong, only you can help us work together harmoniously. Only you can help us live together harmoniously. And I entrust that thought. The other person, what often happens, the other person's resentment towards me, or their irritation towards me, or whatever it is, begins to soften. It begins to dissolve. It may not go away 100%. I mean, on its own, it won't go away 100%, but it softens up. And if they're also working on practicing, then it really begins to disappear. Because if I've treated someone badly, this is the funniest thing about human psychology. If I treat you badly, I immediately forget about it. If somebody treats me badly, I remember that. So people always forget about what they've done to other people, or they misjudge. They underestimate what they've done to other people. Oh, it wasn't that bad. You're just being overly sensitive, right? But boy, they remember what happened to them, and they tend to overestimate what they got. So the person giving it thinks they didn't give very much, and the person receiving it thinks they got more than was given, and so immediately there's a conflict and bad feelings. And if neither side is working to let go of those, it just escalates, right? I'm going to hurt you as much as you hurt me. Right off the bat, I'm wrong about how much you hurt me. And immediately afterwards, I'm wrong about how much I hurt you because I hurt you more than I thought I did. And so it just spins out of control into this, stupid cycle of revenge and pain and hurt feelings, and nothing good comes out of it. But through mind, what Daehaeng Sunim is talking about, these treasures of one mind, right? Let's work together harmoniously. Let's live together harmoniously. I sincerely regret and apologize for any hurt I've given you. Sometimes you can't say that to a person, right? So the time has passed. Years have passed. Maybe they're gone. They're dead. Maybe it's too awkward. You work with your boss's boss's boss, and it's like, that's stupid. And you can't go up to him and say, I'm sorry for thinking you were a jerk. There's times when that's really not going to be helpful. But through this connection we share, you can entrust the thought, oh, I'm sorry I was hurtful. I'm sorry I was spiteful. Even though they may have behaved badly, I'm sorry I didn't handle that as well as I could have. May you live harmoniously. May you live wisely. May you have enough. And that, because we're connected, that energy connects with them. In one Daehaeng Sunim's Dharma teacher was Hanmaum Seon. He was one of the first patriarchs of the modern Choge order. He passed away in 1951, I think, 51. And he wrote a poem, and for years I didn't understand the poem, because one of the lines said, all I hope is that every year the harvests are plentiful. I'm like, the harvests are plentiful? I grew up in farm country with big industrialized farming. And so I was like, okay, the farmers make a lot of money this year? All right, I'm sure they're happy about that. That's kind of my starting point. Well, eventually it clicked on me that in the old countryside in Korea, in the economies, it was basically a barter economy where the farmers would trade rice for other stuff. They'd trade, a sack of rice to the blacksmith for the year's work that they did for him. They'd trade a sack of rice or half a sack of rice to the barber who trimmed their hair. And, every spring, March, April come around, and it's like, do I have enough food to make it to April, May, June, right? That was, oh, my refrigerator's low. Let me get on Coupang here and get on the app and I'll order some more food. That's not the way it worked, right? They didn't have any money. And if they didn't have any rice in March, April and May were going to be really ugly. It's like, tree bark soup again. And so that was a big deal. Even if we look at the problems historically that Korea and China have had with Mongolia, that was almost always due to the people up north not having enough food. And so at some point, the Korean government just started giving them food, paying them. They called it tribute, but they're basically giving them food. In America, they call it welfare. But it's like, here's some food, please don't attack us. Well, on the one hand, it's like, oh, we're being blackmailed, right? We shouldn't be blackmailed. But it's a little simpler than that. It's, if they're not hungry, they won't cause problems. They're causing problems because they don't have enough. They're causing problems because they're hungry. And so just this thought, may they have enough. May they have enough to be sufficient for their needs. That's a big deal. Historically, lots of violence and lots of problems would disappear. I suspect that most of the Vikings didn't want to go killing and raiding particularly, because you yourself can get killed doing that. But they had no food, and they had no land, and they had nowhere to live. And so, that problem was why they were behaving badly like that. So one of the, on page 113, the very last line is quite interesting. It says, so I'll read the last 3 lines on page 113. This unimaginable infinite functioning of all energies, connecting and working together as one, such that they cannot be said to exist or not exist. Wait a minute, what do you mean exist or not exist? But if you think about electricity, if you think about clouds, if you think about most things, it's changing its form constantly. The rice I had for dinner has changed its form. So you can't say that the rice exists anymore, and you can't say it doesn't exist. It did exist at a point, but that energy has changed form. I gave the example last time. My pen looks like it exists. But if you look at this from the perspective of not even 1,000,000 years, if you look at this from the perspective of 1,000 years, this shape is just an eye blink, right? It's just going along, and it was petroleum, and then just for a second, just a flash, it took the shape of plastic. And in another second, that plastic will be gone. It'll be something else. It'll be carbon or whatever. And so all this interaction, all this stuff, it has no fixed form. It's always changing. So one of the points is that we need to be careful not to get caught up in the fixed shapes, in the fixed feelings, the same feeling, the same expression of this energy. People sometimes, when they're practicing, they have really nice experiences. It's like, wow, I feel wonderful. I feel at peace with the world. Everything's great. Everything's smooth. And then, bam, the feeling's gone. It's like, wait, come back. That was kind of nice. That felt like that was the way things are supposed to be. But all this energy, all these aspects are constantly changing. So there's no fixed form. It doesn't exist as a fixed form. So we need to be careful about trying to chase after a particular aspect, or getting too caught up into which aspect is good, which aspect is bad. It's the same thing for everything, because it's really hard for us to know what's truly good and what's truly bad. Because everything is in the process of development. So if they come along and they knock down my house, that seems like a really bad thing right off the top. But if they build a brand new house for me, like, hey, that worked out pretty good, right? If I gave this example before, but I checked into a hotel one time. I went to my room, And there was something funny about the room. It was bugging me. I couldn't put my finger on it. It was a nice hotel, but I got the cheapest room in the hotel. And it was just like a small, dark room. There's something strange about it. It was bugging me. I couldn't figure it out. And I realized they gave me a smoker's room, right? So the smell, what was bugging me was the smell, like old cigarette smell, like just soaked into the carpet and soaked into the walls. I was just like, ugh, ooh, ooh. And I went back to this room was like in the back, far side of the hotel, and I had to go up one little set of stairs and down another little stairs and then around and down and all the way back down to the front desk. And I went to the front desk again, hauling my suitcase with me, tired, and clunk, 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 clunk. And I went to the front desk and I said, listen, this isn't going to work. I want a non-smoking room. And the lady at the front desk was like, ooh, ooh. Like, and finally said, okay, here's a room for you. And I went up there, and it was this great room. It had hardwood floors, and it was probably from the end of this table to that wall as big a space. A huge shower, it had a writing desk. The bathroom was huge. Big shower, writing desk, nice bed, good view. I completely forgot about the first room. Right? The first room I thought was a disaster and unfortunate. I got an upgrade and I completely forgot about everything before the upgrade. And we all think, dying is like a terrible thing, right? But if your body's not working good and you feel terrible all the time, dying might be such a nice upgrade that you completely forgot about all the inconvenience that came before. So we need to be careful about not getting too caught up into one form or another. Okay, what was the other thing? Right. So on page 117, up till now, the Buddhists talked about all the functioning of these energies of one mind. And he talks about, the next page, he talks about how precious this is. If you use these, he calls it treasures of one mind to help other people, what a valuable thing it is. It generates this incredible virtue and merit for you and for other people. But on page 117, the Buddha says, I won't read the whole page here today, but basically, as wonderful as it is to help other people, to help other people through one mind, and that's how we should, through mind, that's how we should truly try to help people. But as wonderful as that is, if you teach people about this foundation, about this utter non-duality, and you help them live in tune with it, so then the world itself can truly function as a non-dual whole. I mean, this world is fundamentally a non-dual whole, right? The problem is that people don't act like it. The problem is people don't know it. And so they try to act as if it was separate, everything was separate. As if, if you have money and I don't have money, then I've suffered a loss. Whereas if I can take your money, then I've gained money, right? If you understand the truth of non-duality, then you realize I haven't gained anything. I've actually lost, because it's like taking the flesh from my right hand, or from my left hand from my right hand. It's like there's no gain there. I just created more suffering. And if I truly understand non-duality, and I can entrust my situation to this foundation, then everything that I truly need will most likely show up, right? It's like there's no holes in the ocean, right? There's waves, but as soon as you try to make a hole in the water, it's just instantly filled up. It's the same thing. We're not separate from everything else. So if we truly need something and we make this connection, that tends to show up. So Go Sunim is saying here, or the Go Sunim and the Buddha are saying here, that if we can teach people to understand for themselves this non-dual whole, to live in tune with this non-dual whole, then the virtue and merit of that is beyond anything else. The benefits of that for other people, for myself, is just incalculable. It's beyond any kind of precious thing. And it's, in Korean history, there's kind of a funny thing. If you go to the East Coast, or Gyeongsang, South Gyeongsang Province, Gyeongsang-namdo, you'll find all kinds of temples and hermitages, and they usually are attributed, 40% of them, 50% are attributed to three people: Wonhyo Desa, Wisung Desa, or Jajang Yusa. Right? So Wonhyo Desa is kind of a sun master. Well, not kind. Wonhyo Desa is a sun master. Wisung Desa is a sun master / scholar, very great monk, considered a very great monk. Jajang Yusa is a preceptor. He taught people the precepts, right? And he's revered at the same level as these other two monks, although he was like, I think, a generation before them. That was always strange to me, because to me it sounds like somebody telling you, do this, don't do that, right? Oh, don't kill people, don't lie, don't steal, don't engage in improper sexual behavior, avoid intoxicants, don't, for monks, there's an old one, don't boil water for bathing if it's not on the 6th day. That one's just so don't waste firewood. But why are people so excited about somebody who tells you don't do this, don't do that, don't do this thing? That didn't make any sense to me. And then I realized that the precepts themselves are expressions of non-duality, right? Don't kill other people. Don't steal from them. Don't try to deceive them, right? Don't try to use them for your own gratification. These are all fundamental reflections of non-duality, right? If your body is as valuable, if I truly realize that your body is a reflection of my body, an extension of my body, then any harm I do you is going to hurt me. That's the awakened perspective. But if I haven't awakened yet, then I need to make my behavior in tune with that principle, right? If I make my behavior in tune with that principle, then I still get the benefit. I get a lot of the benefits of that, even though I don't understand exactly why that works, right? So you think about, especially Korea at this time, the year 600 or so, plus or minus a little bit, people aren't moving around, right? They live in the same village for all their lives. They live in the same neighborhood for all their lives. And so their grandparents, their parents, them, they see how somebody lives throughout their life. Mom or dad or grandpa or grandma can tell you, oh, this guy, he lived like this, and this is how his life ended up. She lived like that, and that's how her life ended up. And they live in the same place long enough to see these patterns. And what people realized is that when they started following the precepts, their lives went a lot better. A lot of the suffering they had went away. A lot of the bumps and stuff, their lives were less chaotic. And it's like, wow, just following the precepts is a blessing. And not, like I said, not because it's do this, don't do that, but because I'm putting, even though I don't understand exactly why necessarily, I'm putting myself in tune with this principle of non-duality. I'm making even though I may need to wear a hat with a little sign on the front that says, don't steal. like, ooh, don't, because it's such a habit. Or don't lie, or don't kill. But, it's like, oh, well, why am I not? I'd really like to kill this guy. He's really on my nerves. It's like, don't kill. Okay, right. Just doing that makes your life go better, right? And so that's why people who've been around for a while put so much, appreciated Jajang Yusa so much. It's like, oh, right, he taught us the correct way to live, right? So, I'm not trying to beat you up, but if you live like this and you live like this and you live like this, your life will go so much smoother. It's like, okay. And he convinced them, and they put it into practice, and it really worked out that way. So that ties into this whole idea. What the Buddha is saying here at the end of chapter 11 is that if you help other people learn about this truth of non-duality, and so that they can practice for themselves, then it's just an incredible blessing on everyone around them. So, try to put this idea of non-duality, of, we all inherently share the same life, the same body, the same mind. We're automatically, naturally giving and receiving whatever's needed, and helping working together as one, just helping people without any hindrance or without any hitch. If you have somebody you really care about and they ask for help, if you notice this, you don't even think about it. You're just like, oh yeah, okay, sure, what do you need? Or a really good friend or somebody like that. That's the way we're inherently functioning. That's the way we inherently are. But because we don't live in tune with that, we create lots of hardships for ourselves, unnecessary hardships. There's always hardships from change, right? There's always old karma, and even just existing, there's something that's called entropy, right? Things come together and they fall apart, like our bodies, right? We meet people, then we have to separate. We have to meet people, we have to come together with people we don't like. And then hopefully again we get to separate. But there's always this stuff. But there's a whole nother level of unnecessary suffering caused by not understanding, not appreciating our connection with other people. All right, I will go ahead and stop here for the discussion part of our meeting, and so we'll continue in a few minutes with the small group discussion. Thank you very much.